Hey guys, and welcome to Sheen Procs. This is a Trinity Force podcast production brought to you by ggchronicle.com. My name is Ponophobia, and I am your host for this evening. For those of you who don't know, who may have not have caught the first episode of Sheen Procs last week, we had Hood Stomp, CLG.Black's AD carry on, and this week we actually have Bloodwater, CLG.Black's support on. So how are you doing, Bloodwater?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you for coming on. As well, want to kind of explain what Sheen Procs is for the people that are out there. Excuse me, a little bit flustered as I've been. I just got home not 20 minutes ago, so I'm just trying to catch my bearings here. But Sheen Procs is a quick, fast-firing interview series, much like the Sheen in the game where you trigger it by using an ability or it procs by using an ability. We are firing quick questions off, about a half an hour's worth of questions, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and start one off here. Can you tell me who you are, again, who you play for? I know we mentioned it, and any other kind of personal information that you would feel comfortable letting your fans know about.
My name is Lubomir, and I'm 19. I live in SoCal. And the first time, I used to play on Fortnite, actually, and I actually got invited for a tryout for CLG.Black. And they actually liked how I played, so that's pretty much how I got on the team.
Well, it's fantastic. It's not often that you actually hear people give their age out and everything when they, interview. They're just like, my name is such and such, and I do this role. So it's nice. It's nice hearing a little bit more personal information about people because we're all pretty much the same age, in between like 18 and 20 years old. And it's just nice for a lot of people to hear that. People your age are doing this. So how did you actually get started with CLG.Black? You said you got drafted, but how did that whole come about?
Mm-hmm. Well, at first there was a lot of rumors coming out, so I asked a friend of mine, Miss Whiskers, to recommend me, and I guess she did. And just one day, like out of nowhere, I got an invite. I was pretty surprised. I was like, dang. So I tried my hardest, and I got in.
And as far as your name, Bloodwater, where did you get that from? Have you been using that name for long on the internet, or is it just for League of Legends?
When I used to play World of Warcraft, I actually used Blackwater. And after I quit the game, I joined League, and I tried using Blackwater, but it was taken, so I just used Bloodwater. It was
so do you prefer Blood or Black?
It doesn't matter to me anymore. I've used Bloodwater for a while, so...
So what is your favorite support right now in the current meta?
Current meta, probably on aggressive support, something like Sona or Leona, just because there's a lot of squishy supports nowadays. And a lot of people like to pick Soraka in the bottom lane. So if I do pick an aggressive support, we can just run a kill lane bottom and probably a Karthus mid or something.
Okay, if you're playing a certain kind of kill lane, let's pretend you're playing Leona, for example, with a Graves. Is there any kind of tips you would give to anyone that is aspiring to play some kind of kill lane, something they may not know, maybe watching how their teammates play or, along those lines? Not teammates, excuse me, opponents.
Mainly, if you think their jungler is going to gank you when you try to kill them and they're baiting you, you just have to wait until you see him on the mini-map if your worst don't see him. So that's just like a way of being safe and knowing that if you go in, like, you won't get baited and die, which tends to happen a lot of times.
Speaking of, continuing with the bottom lane, I guess we're going to really focus on the bottom lane because you are the support. Why are you in the support role? Did you pick that up from playing a bunch of solo queue, or is that what you got tossed into when it came to CLG.Black? How did that all come about?
Season 1, when I was a beginner in League of Legends, I used to play AD. And I got into this team called Brofist Gaming, and we just played Go for Walls every Sunday, and I would just play AD all over and over. And then our support left one day, so I just decided to take the support role and master it, and we recruited a new AD, and it started working out pretty good. We did win a bunch of Go for Walls as well, so...
If you have low elo friends that play League of Legends, how painful is it to watch them play?
They just, in my opinion, they don't really think about what they do. They just play for fun. In my opinion, they don't really always try their hardest.
So, would you say that thinking is what makes the difference in between low elo and high elo?
Thinking is a big part of it, but you also have to be skilled, especially if you're playing AD carry.
Okay, so let's talk about skill. What kind of skills do you think a support player needs? Let's do a generic here, and we'll branch off of that from from that.
A support player would need really fast reactions. He would need to know certain matchups in the bottom lane, like which matchups wins and how you can win a certain matchup. Let me think. I think that's it. There's probably more, but I can't think of it right now.
Now, you would agree that map awareness is a very large part of playing support, correct?
Yes, it is.
Do you feel that you spend more time looking at the mini-map than you do your actual lane, or is it like a good 50-50 split?
It's more of actually a 60-40 split. I try to pay attention to the lane, especially if they run a kill lane against us. You have to pay attention to your lane, because if you daze off, like anything can go wrong. Any misplay by you can get you killed or your AD killed.
I gotcha. Now, of course, you're buying wards. You're the primary person that'll be buying wards pretty much throughout the entire game. And in solo queue, we see that a lot more prevalent, where everyone's yelling at the support, buy wards, buy wards, buy wards. When do you feel is the best time to start warding, playing as a support in bottom lane? Let's talk in a 5v5 scenario. Is there a certain time, like 3 minutes in, that you'll put a ward down, and where will you put it?
I honestly like to put my wards down immediately, probably in the tri-bush or the bottom lane side bushes, just because a lot of people try to do lane ganks, and a lot of people do level 2 ganks with certain heroes. For example, Jarvan, because his damage is really strong early game, so if he just does blue buff and ganks you level 2, you're going to take a lot of damage if you don't have it warded, and you're probably going to die.
Do you ward differently depending on which side you are on?
Yes, I do. If I'm blue side, I like to have tri-bush warded, and I like to tell my AD not to push the lane, because I don't want to waste a second ward on River Dragon. And also, it doesn't matter which side I am, you always, in my opinion, need to have a ward in the bottom side bush, on the enemy side bush, in case they try to lane gank you.
Okay, well, what jungle don't you like to play against? Because some jungles, they gank fast. Lee Sin can do, red and gank at level 2. What jungles don't you like to play against?
It's mainly Nocturne, actually, because it's so hard to get him off you, especially as a support player. If he jumps on you, he has a spell shield, he has a fear, and he gets increased movement speed with his Duskbringer. There's like no way to get him off you, and sometimes the flash doesn't even get you away from it.
It doesn't help that he can fear you and keep attacking you while he's doing that.
Yeah.
It's such a bad combo. He fears you and you're still getting attacked while he's fearing you. It's crazy.
Yes, and as a support, you're squishy, so he can kill you really fast.
That does suck, and of course, no amount of wards do help. You did mention, the tri-bush ward, and that's pretty standard for either side, but if you're on purple side, do you actually put the ward in tri-bush or a little bit outside? And if you put it in tri-bush, how do you escape from, what seems to be becoming more popular, the ganks down the river, especially if the other side catches you putting that ward into the tri-bush?
Well, when I'm purple, I don't always like to wear tri-bush, because it's so easy to gank through river. So I like to tell my mid lane to put a word at their rates every time after I put it up. So he would keep it up every time, and we would know if their jungler's coming down through the river. Also, if I get the chance, I would word where their doubles are, the bush for their doubles. So we would know if they come down through any path.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It was kind of surprising to me because you mentioned, I really like Sona and Leona as the aggressive supports, but a lot of times I tune into you, and in tournaments I've seen you playing Taric, and you didn't give any credence to him or any mention of him. Do you like Taric? And our actually follow-up question was, do you think he's kind of overpowered at the moment? Especially him and Ezreal combined seem to be the more popular combination and the more popular champions in their given roles.
To be honest, I used to like playing a lot of Taric, but now I really don't. Just because Soraka, after she gets her levels, she can just heal the AD carry after I shatter him, and he can just kill us. There's no point of running Taric unless you have a really early aggression and possibly get a gank from your jungler, which could snowball you the lane. Because if you don't snowball the lane with Taric, it's really hard to get kills unless you're Taric Graves or Taric Corki.
So let's say, excuse me, Sotir, but let's say you're playing Taric. Of course, it makes you much squishier when you pop your W, but are you looking for a kill at level 4 if you're running with a Tristana or a Graves if you are playing that specific character in the bottom lane?
Always looking for a kill, actually. Mainly, we try to kill their support early, especially if we play Tarek, but most of the time they don't really walk up to me, so it's hard to do that. So every time I would have to stun the AD carry. And level 4, we just go when the moment's right
Okay.
for the kill. So you can't really say level 4.
Sure. Easiest way to put it. I guess a lot of people look at about level 4 because you get 2 points in your primary damage skill, and that's when you start really looking for the kills. But of course, it's always depending on how the lane is played. So Tyr, go ahead. I know you had a follow up.
I've almost forgotten the follow-up. I still feel like, Tarek provides a lot of burst like Leona. He just doesn't have the extra trickiness where Leona gets extra range, essentially through Solar Flare at level 6, where she can engage on people without them expecting on it. Tarek is always, relegated to that stun range or possibly the flash stun range. So I can understand where you're coming from. At the same time, that Radiant Shatter combination is pretty darn devastating, especially with the, armor penetration followed up by, as you mentioned, Corki and Graves, but also, a combination with Ezreal does decent amounts of damage at level 6 as well. So that's too bad that you're coming off of it. I've never been a huge Tarek fan. I can understand why you're not as well. So a kind of follow-up question as to the general meta. Are you satisfied with it? Do you like the jungler with the AD and support bottom, solo mid and top? Or do you want there to be more options? Do you think there will be more options coming into the future?
I honestly don't think there will be many options, just because the meta has stayed the same for way too long.
Mm-hmm. One thing Riot has been doing, and this is kind of going off script, so I apologize for that, is over time they've been decreasing the amount of experience solo lanes get in compared to the the duo lanes or even the triple lanes. Essentially the solo experience goes down and down and down. And Riot's purpose for that has been saying, oh, we don't really want to enforce a jungler. And I think that's more for low-level play, but you'll see it on occasion in higher-level solo queue play where teams will forego a jungler or have a jungler that doesn't really grab all the jungle minions, let the middle pick it up. And you've also seen on very rare occasion, like 2-1-2.
Oh, you piece of shit.
What more do you think Riot would actually have to do to make that viable?
I think that the way the solos gain experience is fine, because if they gain more experience, they would just one-shot anyone, because the mid lane is pretty much your early game carry, and the AD is your mid to late game carry. If your AD doesn't do well early game, you're going to fall really behind in the mid game, and you're going to have to just let them farm up and do your best to, keep towers up and everything, because the other team's going to try to take advantage of the issue that your AD carry is behind.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with a 1-1-1-2 with 2 in the bot lane, the standard meta basically, do you most of the supports you've mentioned are important or that you like to play have some type of sustain or survivability skill, whether it's like a shield or a heal. Do you think it's important? Like, what about Nautilus? What about Blitzcrank? And what about Gangplank as support, let's say?
What do I think of them?
Yeah, and do you think they're, in the long term, as viable as the sustain-y supports, even if they're more aggressive sustain, like Tarek?
Personally, when I play solo queue and I'm playing AD, I dislike Blitzcranks on my team, especially in my lane, because they miss all their hooks. I'm not saying I land on my hooks, but I just don't like Blitzcrank in general. And I think he's a very tricky champion. And in regards to Nautilus, I think he scales off late game, because if you don't have an initiator for your team, Nautilus will have to do the initiating, and he would just get one shot, because he's sort of like an off tank and a second-hand initiator, I guess you would call it.
Okay. How about you give us some tips for the solo queue player that decides they want to main support?
Pretty much just start off with Fairy Charm. You can start off with 2 greens, 1 pink and a pot, or 4 greens and a pot and a Fairy Charm. And just early game, ward your bushes, and make sure you keep your AD safe. Pretty much playing supports that can sustain or shield your AD carry are best, because it's like it's easier for beginner players to master. You know, if you play Taric, you're gonna probably stun at the wrong time, and you're gonna bait yourself or your AD carry, which isn't the best thing to do, and they would just get mad at you. Maybe, I don't know.
How about rolling into mid and late game as a solo queue support? What are your goals?
You could actually mid to late game. You should definitely purchase an Oracle if your jungler hasn't. And always have words. It doesn't matter. All the time you need to have words. I would always purchase words over items. Especially if your solos aren't buying words, you should buy words for sure. You should have at least 5 or plus.
Okay. Let's say you're playing someone like a Leona, for example, in solo queue, and you're doing well. Let's just pretend that the teams are even. Would you initiate as Leona, or would you use it more to try to protect your AD carry? You know, like a normal ranked 5s would probably do.
It comes up to the team comp in general, because if you have a team comp that's all initiate, like Leona would probably be the main initiate with her ultimate. She would initiate and everyone would just jump in. But if their team comp is like has a bigger initiation than yours, I would probably protect my AD, because if he dies, we would lose the fight.
Right, right. And let's roll this over into now a ranked 5v5. It's not as popular in the North American scene, but people do play it and they enjoy playing as 5s. Do you have any different tips for a bottom lane?
5v5?
5v5. You know, besides the
pretty much
normal ward and everything. Go ahead.
It's mainly working on communication with your AD carry and just having his opinion in general. So if he makes the calls, I think it's better, because he has a better idea of how much damage he can do.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you feel
it's just communication.
Do you feel like when you're in let's say you're in a Skype chat and you're in a tournament, are you constantly talking to your AD carry? Hood Stomp, of course, is your AD carry. Are you constantly talking to Hood Stomp, or is it more of, we can engage now, this is up in 3 seconds? Are they just quick bursts?
I constantly try to talk to him. I try to tell him when certain spells on the enemy support and the AD carry will be up, because usually I know the cooldowns. And I also try to talk to my team and help them out with map awareness. If someone's trying to gank them, I tell them like, "Yo, jump on top, go back." You know.
So what do you think Hood Stomp should change in this style of play? Because you obviously have a good synergy, otherwise you wouldn't be a pro team, but what bothers you about his style of play right now?
The only thing is communication. You know, most ADs just like to keep quiet and kill minions and try to carry the game.
But farming's important.
Yeah, it is. I think, honestly, you can farm while you talk. It's not that big of a deal.
You can ask Sotir. Sotir's the one who's been playing AD carry for us. We've been playing some ranked 5s as GG Chronicle, and Sotir's always complaining that he's probably looking around the map more than he's actually trying to last hit.
Yeah, but that means I'm just simply not farming, so that's not a good not a good balance, especially for a professional level team. They don't have that luxury of missing out on a couple last hits to try to make calls and whatnot. So I certainly understand the focus on the farm. If you really don't want to fall behind the opposition, it's not that necessarily talking and farming is very hard together, but if you miss that one CS, sometimes it leads to the next CS that you miss, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I can't even believe I missed those CS, and that becomes like a negative impact on the rest of your farming. So I can understand how that could kind of snowball itself and be really unfortunate. So
I actually have a question. It's not on our little list, but what do you think is going to happen to the meta when Riot ends up nerfing gold per 10 again? Because it's going to happen. They've already nerfed it the first time when they made it where you couldn't buy duplicates. Everybody was buying Mass Philo or Mass Heart of Gold. And they just nerfed Heart of Gold and Philo Stone with the amount of health and mana you get. So what do you think will happen to the meta when Riot does it again? Because eventually it'll happen.
You could possibly see more kill lanes and a lot of more engagement in League of Legends in general, like a lot of more fighting. Just because people aren't going to sit around and wait for gold, honestly. You need to make something happen to earn your gold if gold percentages will actually get nerfed. That's my opinion of it.
Now,
because we all remember the 80 mid days when nobody ever bought gold per 10, and it was just like, let's just kill everybody and win the game. I mean, that's changed so much.
Wouldn't increase
Probably.
roaming too, or?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what started roaming Alistar, I believe. I mean, roaming Alistar stopped when you just bought Heart of Gold. You know, when you started buying gold for 10. Like, I used to play Taric all the time in Rome. Oh, I was in lane for the first minute. Not there anymore.
Yeah, let the AD carry.
Well,
fend
I
for
don't know
himself.
that GP10 are necessarily to blame for the lack of roaming. Actually, when you want to roam and you want to be a jungler that can roam, you of course pick up those GP10, and they tend to be the more gank-heavy junglers like a Maokai or Alistar, and then they feel like, okay, well, I don't have to spend every single minute farming because I have that extra GP10. But I do like that insight from Bloodwater. If there's less GP10s, there'd be more aggression, and I think Riot really wants more and more aggression because that would make it a better spectator sport.
I wasn't talking about junglers, though. I'm talking about back in the day we used to play support Taric, and then Taric would roam. Like, you would leave the bottom lane and never go back.
Oh yeah, and I did it with Janna. I'm just saying, I don't know that was a GP10 thing. I think, eventually people figured out that, oh, if the AD carry is alone, we can kill them or completely zone them out. And I think that just got easier to do and easier to recognize as well, because solo lanes don't get the same experience bonus that they used to. They used to get significantly more, so that would be a level 5 versus 2 level 3s, for instance, whereas now it's very, very short-lived, any sort of level advantage the solo has over the duo lane.
Yeah,
Just to follow up with this whole discussion, I mean, like, let's say GP10s are nerfed, people will buy oracles obviously a lot earlier, but right now, when should you buy an oracles?
Mainly, I like to buy my oracle after I've gotten both of the Philosopher's Stone and the Heart of Gold, and probably my Lucidity boost. But if I have to, I would rush it after the 2 gold per 10s immediately.
do you feel
Okay.
that do you feel that a support should always have an oracles on them, especially mid to late game, or is this a situational type of thing depending on how much gold you have and a team comp?
Mid to late game, a support should always have an oracle, definitely. Especially if she can stay alive, or he or she.
Okay, do you feel the oracle should be changed, or do you like the way it is now, from an objective standpoint, not from a support standpoint?
I think oracle's fine the way it is. I'm not really sure what more they could do to improve it, or like nerf oracle. But I think the way it is fine. It's pretty balanced. You buy it, you die, you lose it. That's pretty much it.
Right. What if do you think it would be too much if they put some kind of timer on oracles, like you use it and it's 5 minutes? Do you think it would make it so it would be a gamble to buy it, where people now, like much like Baron buff, you could just try to wait it out to pick up the next Baron?
I think it wouldn't be bought as much early game. Possibly mid to late game is where you might see an oracle then, just because everyone's trying to rush for objectives, such as Baron and probably enemy buffs.
Okay. Any other questions from the crew that is here today?
Nope.
I do have something. It might be a little bit involved, but if you think it's going to take more than 30 seconds of your time to answer it, feel free to just be like, okay, we can address that another time, Bloodwater. But you mentioned Philostone, Heart of Gold. Philostone just got nerfed a little bit. It might have got nerfed a lot. I forget whether it went from 250 hit point to 200.
It did.
Or so I mean that's substantial. That is a substantial nerf. I have always been a proponent of getting Philostone and then rushing Aegis just because it makes you tankier, and then you have that Aegis for your mid-game team fights. But why do you not suggest going for that? Why do you feel like those 2 GP10 are core items that you should always pick up before you go into, that Oracle or, before your Boots of Lucidity or thereon and thereforth?
I think they're the core items, honestly, because the support needs mana regen, definitely, and the Heart of Gold does give you a boost of health. Even though the Philistone got nerfed, I still feel like it's really useful, especially for a support, because you're going to need mana regen, constantly in laning phase, so it's always best first to have Philistone. I don't really feel like the nerf did that much to it.
Yeah, I think the nerf to Heart of Gold was a little bit more frightening, just in the sense that now it's only a 20 hit point bonus, over just having that regular ruby crystal. So you're paying an extra $375 for 20 hit points, and of course the ability to make gold over time. But as soon as you get into lane, you have a very, very minimal survivability bonus. Whereas previously it was at least decent size. You got a good chunk of extra hit points. But yeah, thank you for that insight. That's certainly helpful.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a facetious question to round this out?
Sure.
All right. Do you enjoy sushi?
I do not.
Really? Being out in the West Coast, you don't enjoy sushi at all?
I'm in the... Yeah, I don't.
Okay. I
was not used to eating that food.
Can I ask you, if you had a meal to end all meals, you were on death row, what would you pick?
American Chinese food? I don't know. Subway? I don't know.
All right, so American Chinese food. Let's go with that. Favorite dish?
I guess fried rice, orange chicken.
Oh man, you're a bad after by heart. No homo.
Okay.
No General Cho's? How do you not like General Cho's chicken? It's so spicy. It's wonderful. With lo mein. Like, how can you not like that?
Oh, it's so delicious.
I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of General Tso's chicken?
No.
Wow.
I've never heard of it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Jaden's just inventing Chinese food now.
Yeah. No, next time you go, General Tso's chicken. TSOS. That's there's apostrophe in there somewhere. But yeah, General Tso's chicken is nice and spicy and it's delicious. Anyway, to get off.
Are you around San Francisco?
Yes. Actually, SoCal. So around LA.
Oh, because should be going to San Fran on August 11th and 12th.
Yeah, I used to live in San Ramon. Actually, it was about an hour from San Francisco, but
Man, he's gonna have stalkers now tossing it out on the podcast. So
all the major teams seem to be moving to the West Coast, so that could be a good thing for all the teams. They can get together and LAN or do whatever they want, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
He'd be down right here. You guys heard it right now on Sheen Procs. If you're a pro listening to this, Bloodwater wants to scream.
Stay at Bloodwater's house.
Yeah, everyone hanging at Bloodwater's house. He'll get you all fried rice and some orange chicken. So, anyway, guys, that'd be Sheen Procs for tonight. We are just under 30 minutes. Thank you so much for coming on this week, Bloodwater.
No problem. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it, and we didn't ask you too many crazy questions. So, that is it for this week for Sheen Procs, guys. If you want to catch us, you'll find us on twitter.com/GG Chronicle. Twitter.com/TForce Podcast as well. That's where I'll be tweeting it. You will find this on Reddit, of course, every day. We are looking to release these either on Friday or Monday. I have not decided on the day yet that I will be releasing this as I am putting the podcast together. And you will always be able to check out the VODs over at youtube.com/GG Chronicle. Before we go, Bloodwater, any kind of shout outs to any of your crew or anybody?
For me?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Basically to my family and friends and just everybody that's listening or watching this, and all the players that play League of Legends, mainly the community.
Yeah, we love the community. That's right. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to this week. Next week, we don't have a confirmed guest for next week yet, but we're looking at one of two people.
Yes, we do.
Oh,
Parole.
we do have the confirmed guest. Please tell the people who we have.
It's Parole. For not Parole.
Fantastic.
80 carry.
There we go. We have another 80 carry on next week for not Parole. We are going to try to get the Rain Man on for one of these weeks and potentially some other, I'm not going to say high-profile guests, but more popular guests as well.
Rain Man does not want to be on because he does not like answering questions.
Oh,
Jesus.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, that's something that I'll discuss with you after the fact. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next week.
Peace.